Hi and welcome. My name is Ariella Halevi and welcome to Legacy Alive. We are soul-centered, my husband and I, Baruch Halevi. We are soul-centered, and soul-centered is a center for education and experiential learning and exploring for those that want to explore a spirituality, meaning, and healing. And it's really for all people in the afternoon of life, for people who are midlife and are looking for new rules, new tools, and goals to really transform and live their lives in a different way than they lived previously before midlife came. I'm an intuitive guide and a healer, and I work with midlife women to connect to their body, emotions, and spirit in order to open to holistic healing and also empower their lives. So we're going to welcome you to Legacy Alive today, and happy Father's Day to everybody here and everybody that is celebrating Father's Day and also remembering a father perhaps that is not here.
So again, welcome, Baruch Levi, B, Rabbi B. Delighted to have you here. As Ariella said, this is part of what we do at Soul Centered. We both work with clients in different areas, but one of them that comes up, I think, over and over for the people that we work with is loss. In the afternoon of life, there's inevitable loss. It's part of life. And so really it's life, loss, and then legacy, and transforming that loss into something meaningful and purposeful and inspirational. And that's what the Legacy Alive experience is, and is where it's come from. My father, as many of you know, I've written a book about it, Spark Seekers, and I talked a lot about it, died coming up on 16 years ago. And, Father's Day has always been, since then, a shadowy holiday. I'm a father of four, of our four beautiful children. And so it's about celebrating life with them and my role as a father. But what about me as a son? And having one dad, and my dad, who's no longer physically here. And so over the past 15 plus years, I've cultivated a new way to have relationships with him. Every morning I sit in meditation and I talk with him. Talk with lots of different loved ones, my best friend Mark and my grandparents and so forth. Just because somebody's body isn't here doesn't mean they're not here. It means they're just not seen in the way they used to be seen. And so we have to develop new ways to be in relationship. And that's where the Legacy Alive experience has come from. If you joined us on Mother's Day, you experienced it with mothers and Ariella's mom, who physically passed but is spiritually here, and your moms. Well, today is for fathers. So we invite you to invite your father into your life formally during this next half hour, to make space, to create space. I just wrote a blog on this. You can read more about it. 5 ways to honor your dad on Father's Day if he's not physically here. And part of it is creating time, making space, devoting attention and intention to continue to be in relationship. And so that's what we're going to do right now. We have some very simple ways, readings and chanting and some reflections, candle lighting. But it's just an opportunity for you as a child to remember your father and to pay tribute to your father and to hopefully find some inspiration on this Father's Day.
Great. Can you do reading?
Sure. So we'll begin with some readings. We have in front of me, but on your chat, I put in there a download for just a simple soul sheet. You can also get it at mysoulcenter.org on the downloads page. I think it's called Media, and underneath it's Tools. So go to Media and Tools. You can download it. You don't need it. This is a simple, beautiful little reading about Father. It's called Moments Before by Kelly Horn. Moments before our walk that afternoon, I realized that the path ended too soon. Not long enough to hold his hand, this amazing person, this loving man. Not long enough to engage his eyes and remember him always brimming with pride. Not long enough to stand by his side as he was by mine after every rough tide. Not long enough to laugh with him still and every bad joke after every tough hill. Not long enough to walk with this man who has taught me to be the person I am. not long enough as we walked by his wife to thank them both for my wonderful life. In all the walks I've taken in my life, first as a girl and now as a wife, I'll remember that walk I took with my father and always wish it could have been longer. And so if your dad is still in this life, thank God, and you'll continue to walk by his side and he by yours, and you can pay tribute to him too. It's not just about fathers who are dead, but if your father's physically dead, it's an opportunity to remember all that is not dead. You know, part of my counseling I do with people who've lost loved ones is to help remember, part of what you loved about them is gone. Their physical being is no longer here, but so much about your dad is still very much here, very much in your life. And so really this is an opportunity to remember all that is living, and your dad's legacy is really part and parcel of your life. And so, but maybe we just pay tribute to our dads by lighting a candle. If you want to light a candle, you can, certainly. I'm going to light one for us to honor our dads. I have two here. I'm going to light one for my dad and then one for the other dads in my life, because many types of dads. Ariella might talk about that. So we light this candle. And as we do, just maybe take a moment to think, to reflect on the mystics, the Jewish mystics who teach Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, which is that the Ner Hashem, the candle of the divine of God, is the soul of a person. And the beauty of this teaching is that the candle burns down, right? Our bodies are finite and they melt and they disintegrate and disappear into the earth. But our flame, our soul, doesn't. It continues on, and we become the guardians of the flame. When our loved one dies, it becomes a sacred task and duty to take that flame and to become a guardian, to guard the flame, to carry it. And I call this carrying the fire, which I'll talk more about later, but you're a guardian of your father's flame. And we can talk a little bit later about constructive and destructive fires and what's yours to carry on. But as we begin this, just to make an intention of seeing your father's flame, of holding his flame, and knowing that you are the guardian of that flame.
And with that, we'll transition to a song. A song in the Christian world, it's "Oh Lord, Prepare Me." And there's a Hebrew version of it because we really, when we lead these experiences, we take different traditions and we bring them into this experience with us. So there's really no expectation except to open your heart center and just really feel the songs and the prayers that come from your heart. And this is a beautiful song to remember that when we lose somebody, that there is a sanctuary around us, creating this beautiful community of souls that are here with us during this lifetime, and souls that are then created, a sanctuary that is then created around us of souls that we have lost. It's called our soul family. And so they are present either in physical form or present in the next world. So just taking a deep breath in and just opening your heart to your soul family, to the Father that may not be present here today, to the energy of Father role models that may be present here in physical form today, and just creating a sanctuary around yourself as we begin our song. Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and in thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Taking a deep breath in and a long breath out, and just opening to this idea of prayer. What is prayer? Prayer is sometimes a loaded word when we're thinking about something non-religious or religious. Prayer has just a very strong connotation. So I invite you to think about opening your heart as a form of prayer, of speaking. And so when I think of prayer, I sit in meditation every morning and I open my heart. And then what happens, what comes out is, do you think about, in thinking about the people that we have lost and thinking about your father today, that prayer can be a form of speech. Prayer is a form of opening our hearts and speaking out what hurts. We speak out our grief. We tell that person that we loved so much, or maybe that we struggled with, how much we miss them. Prayer is really an access, a portal to those that we have lost. That I think Baruch said that it's not, their physical form isn't here right now in this lifetime anymore, but that a prayer and opening is this opening to maybe this idea that they are our guides. They are accessible in a different way. And so prayer is creating space. It's a space and time for opening to those that you loved. And it's also a space and time to opening to your emotions. Prayer gets stuck in the body if we don't, grief gets stuck in the body if we don't open to what hurts and our emotions and how we feel. So this invitation is to open your heart center as a form of prayer. And then to remember also that dads come in all forms. So you may not have a physical father, a birth father, the one that gave birth, that contributed to your birth. There's so many different fathers in this lifetime. You may have lost your birth father to the other side, but perhaps you can think about right now this idea that fathers come in all forms. If you think about the mentors in your life, the people that have, the men in your life in physical form that have helped you grow, that have made you who you are today, it may not be your actual father. If you think about the idea of adoptive fathers, so maybe your birth father you never met before, but perhaps your adoptive father is your true father. If you think about your grandfather, perhaps, that you have cultivated this deep relationship with, that is your mentor, that is your father. So just opening our circle, our sanctuary of fathers today, and remembering when that pain of Father's Day, because like Baruch said, Father's Day and Mother's Day are really hallmark holidays, and they can cause a lot of pain and irritation and frustration. And so today I just invite you to open to all fathers, to the father figure perhaps inside of you. In what way, you're a father, in what way are you a role model to others, not just your children, but to others in your life? And so we're just going to take that intention as we continue our experience today, to open our eyes, to open our hearts to prayer and to this idea of all different kinds of fathers.
So in the legacy experience, I like to bring poetry. We don't do much of it on the soul experience, just time, and it's more of a meditative process. But I really like taking poetry or readings because they anchor me. I think they anchor you too. I've gotten a lot of positive response. I found this one called The Successful Man. That man is a success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and the love of children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who leaves the world better than he found it, who has never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who looked for the best in others and gave the best he had. And I guess for me, that's an important moment to pause and think about whoever your father or fathers were, the success, right, that they brought to you and to your life, the impact that they had upon your life. We live in a world that is confused about success. And we teach a lot about it in, the difference between success in the morning of life and the afternoon of life. And too often we define success by the morning rules, which is to be more, you have to do more. You have to accomplish more. You have to accumulate more. And that's a form of success, I would argue, and I don't think I'd have to argue all that hard to you that it's not the true success. The true success is a man or a woman, but we're talking about fathers today, who comes to this world and leaves it a little bit better than he found it, who takes care of those whom he was charged to be responsible for, who shows up every day. He stumbles, he falters, he fails. I certainly do. But in the end, he's judged based on the sum total of his contributions, not just one particular area. And thinking about your dad and really even if you had, and we'll talk about it, even if you had a struggle-filled relationship with him, judging him holistically for all that he contributed to you, and not the least of which is just to your life. So we continue to open our hearts and thinking about the love that our fathers bestowed upon us in a myriad of ways. And maybe it wasn't just verbally, maybe it wasn't verbally at all, and that's too bad, but it's not the only way to bestow love, especially for a dad to demonstrate it through actions and to open up our hearts, touch our hearts, and thinking about the pure heart that he truly had underneath all those layers of the complexities of being a dad.
So we'll open our hearts with this song, Pure Heart.
Again, on your soul sheet, you can download it. There should be a link on the side.
Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me. And renew a true soul within me. And renew a true soul within. And renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me.
Welcome to everybody. I can only see who you are if you comment. So even a heart in the side. Gail, so delighted to reconnect to you. And thank you for joining us. Susan, Barb, Jan, the regulars. But more and more people are watching this afterwards as well. So welcome to everybody. But let us know you're there. And Scott Schaffman, welcome, brother.
So we'll continue in our experience with connecting to silence. Silence is a space to remember and connect and to feel and to open. Sitting in silence is an experience of searching. So when we are going through grief, whether it's the physical loss of a father that we loved, or it's grief in life, as Baruch said, the trials and tribulations of a relationship, which we all have, creating a silent space within us to listen and to feel and to open is essential in connecting to that form of grief.
Can I just add, I would say especially because of our dads, oftentimes dads, men in general, dads in particular, Hi, Terry. Communicate through silence. And silence isn't always an absence, right? In our society, we think of it as absence, right? And that love and demonstration of love is through the words and through, but sometimes it's just through silence. And even if our dads were silent, maybe some more silent than we would have liked or wanted, it doesn't mean there was an absence of love. And so when we go into the silence, really thinking about your dad and the love he gave you, sometimes behind the scenes in silence.
It is, and it's creating a practice of silence. There's so much busyness in life, and the invitation is to slow down enough to be able to feel your grief, to be able to feel the emotions that are stored up. If you think about the years and years of, some of us have lost fathers many years ago, like you, if there's not a process and a silent space for grief, it gets locked in. And so the invitation is to really create a practice for yourself, create a center inside of yourself, a sanctuary inside of yourself for silence and stillness. And then, as we said before, in terms of this opening of a prayer, is to allow yourself to feel it and let it out. So many times we use our minds to get through grief. Right? We use it as a form of speaking to somebody about our grief. But grief is experiential. Grief needs a container to be able to hold in order to experience it and release it. So you can't talk your way through grief, but you can experience your way through grief. And I love this idea of a silent practice because it sets us up for a relationship with silence. We are all going to experience many trials and tribulations in our lives, whether it's losing somebody or just life itself, as we've seen in the past 3 or 4 months. When we set up a silent space for experiencing all loss, then we already have a relationship with this silence, so that when the next hurdle comes, you know where you need to go. You're not creating from the start. So allowing the wisdom of your body and the divine to take over in the silent space. And we're going to ask you and invite you to close your eyes as we come into the next song, to listen to the silence, to hear the silence, and to hear the still small voice within, to prepare and open to the silent spaces. I hear the silence calling me, so softly calling me to what I have always been. I hear the silence calling me, so softly calling me to what I have always been. I surrender to this mystery. I awaken to the beauty. I surrender to this mystery. I awaken to the beauty. I hear the silence calling me, so softly calling me to what I have always been. I hear the silence calling me, so softly calling me to what I have always been.
A lot of the work I do, a lot of the work I've done personally, I don't teach anybody anything I at least haven't attempted to work through. And with the father who completed suicide, it's been a very complicated road for 15 years to sort through what I want for a legacy for my father. And I get to decide, right? That's part of the deal, is especially with suicide, but in loss in general, is we, the recipients, have to decide or get to decide what's legacy. We usually don't think about it as that. We just think we inherit a big bucket of legacy, whatever that might mean. But it's actually ours to discern. And I guide a lot of people, probably everybody, has a complicated relationship with their father. Some more complicated than others. Some are on the edge of destructive relationships. And I think this holiday is complicated because for those who have had a very destructive relationship with their father, what do you do with this holiday? What does it mean to say, Happy Father's Day may not even be the right greeting? And I think about the Jewish or the biblical commandment. It's not just Jewish, it's Christian, for anybody. Kibud avim, which means honor your father. Honor. And the rabbis teach that honor isn't a feeling. You can't command love. But honor is a set of actions. And to honor our fathers, regardless of what our relationship was, is setting aside time to formally remember them. But it's also doing the work of letting pieces of them go. And it's a lot of work to let go those destructive pieces of a relationship. I wrote about this in my book, Spark Seekers, and you can read more about it. The constructive and the destructive fires. Yes, we are here to carry our Father's fire forward. That's what I do every day. I think about, I'm the guardian of his flame, I'm carrying his fire, but which fire? And as you spend some time today thinking about letting go of the destructive fire, letting go of the painful memories or the pieces of him or maybe in you that aren't constructive, aren't illuminating, but burning. And using this time as a way to pay tribute to your dad by letting pieces of him go. And that's honoring him, right? Because that wasn't his highest self. Right now, he's in a place where that's no longer who he is. Now he's just the illumination of constructive and loving fire. And so the more you can let go, you're actually doing service to your dad, for your dad. It isn't a betrayal. It isn't a letting down. It's a letting go. And letting go of what he wasn't. And so as we go forward into today, and we're not going to go that much more forward, but as you go into Father's Day, really sifting through the fires and committing to becoming a guardian of the constructive, beautiful, loving fire that was, is, and will always be your dad.
Beautiful. And with that, I'm going to lead a guided meditation, a visualization. And sometimes healing and grieving, as I said before, is done with our eyes closed in silent spaces. And something that I often do, majority of what I do with clients, is have us close our eyes, because when you close your eyes, the mind gets to slow down. The mind wants control, especially over grief, because it's so painful to go into your body and into the spaces inside of your heart that hurts. And so I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And this is what I do in the work that we do. I help you to close your eyes so that you can heal on a different level, so that you can find your heart and kind of shut out the rest of the world and close down the mind for a moment. And so closing your eyes and getting into a comfortable position. And just begin by taking a deep breath in. The breath is the connector, the bridge between the physical and the soul, the essence of who you are, and also the essence of who your father was. And so take a deep, long breath and let it all go. And then take a nice, long, deep breath again. And imagine that this breath opens your heart, as if the angels came and opened the heart center for you, as if your entire body begins to open to your loss, to your memories, to your joy, to all of it. And taking another deep breath in, and begin to feel the mind relax. And if it hasn't, that's okay. Just letting it go without judgment. Begin to allow your heart center to open, allow your body to relax, allow your shoulders to melt, allow your hips and your feet to be open to whatever arises here for you in this visualization. And as you calm your body, begin opening your heart even more. more so and even more so that you begin to notice that from your heart center is a path. And so going into your imagination a little bit, and as your heart opens, it creates a beautiful path. And you begin to see that you're walking along this path. So maybe it's your favorite place. Maybe it's in the mountains or along the ocean or anywhere in between that is your space to connect. And as you walk along this beautiful setting, it just allows all of the stuff of life to drop so that your heart opens even wider. And as you continue to drop, it's almost like baggage just falls away along the path. So much so that as you begin to walk along this path, you begin to open to the essence of who you are, this divine soul. And you walk so far that you begin to notice a bench. And this bench is magical. It opens you up and you begin to feel that attraction to this bench. The bench is lit up with light. It feels like a safe space, and you begin to sit on this bench. And you begin to notice as you close your eyes, as you're seated in your silent space, opening your heart center, that your loved one, perhaps your father, or whoever arises, your father figure, a role model, a grandfather, sits next to you, someone who has passed. And you begin to feel their presence. And as they've gone into the next life, all of their material, personality, physical parts of them has dropped. And they are pure love and pure soul. And perhaps you take their hand, or they take your hand in theirs. And allow yourself to feel their presence. Maybe turn to them, see their loving eyes. For in this next lifetime, in their space, they are pure love. And as you hold their hands, feeling their heart, they bestow a message to you. Feel that message now, hear it, listen to it. What do they say to you that needs to be said? Perhaps it's an opening, an awakening that allows your heart to open to them even more. A healing. Let your heart open to your loved one and let the messages come through now. And if you received nothing, that's okay. Silence is beautiful. Just sit in the silence of your loved ones and feel their messages. And perhaps taking your hand to your heart and just solidifying it there. And staying here for as long as you like. Or returning to your path. Feeling that you've taken a bit of them with you. Returning to your heart. Returning to your space. Taking a deep breath in. And you can open your eyes and come in to the present moment. And we'll continue with this idea of healing, of opening, of speaking, and allowing that healing to take place between you and your loved one as we continue with Healer of the Brokenhearted. Healer of the brokenhearted, binder of their wounds, counter of uncountable stars, you know where they are. Healer of the brokenhearted, binder of our wounds, counter of uncountable stars, you know who we are. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Ana, Ana, Refana, Ana, Ana, Refana. And so we continue with a reading called Rock Removal. A little boy was spending his Saturday morning playing in his sandbox. He had with him his box of cars and trucks, his plastic pail, and a shiny red plastic shovel. In the process of creating roads and tunnels in the soft sand, he discovered a large rock in the middle of the sandbox. The boy dug around the rock, managing to dislodge it from the dirt. With no little bit of struggle, he pushed and nudged the rock across the sandbox by using his feet. He was a very small boy, and the rock was very huge. When the boy got the rock to the edge of the sandbox, however, he found that he couldn't roll it up and over the little wall. Determined, the little boy shoved, pushed, and pried, but every time he thought he had made some progress, the rock tipped and then fell back into the sandbox. The little boy grunted, struggled, pushed, and shoved, but his only reward was to have the rock roll back, smashing his chubby fingers. Finally, he burst into tears of frustration. All this time, the boy's father watched from his living room window as the drama unfolded. At the moment the tears fell, a large shadow fell across the boy and his sandbox. It was the boy's father. Gently but firmly, he said, "Son, why didn't you use all the strength that you had available?" Defeated, the boy sobbed back, "But I did, Daddy, I did. I used all the strength that I had." "No, son," corrected the father kindly. "You didn't use all the strength you had. You didn't ask me." With that, the father reached down, picked up the rock, and removed it from the sandbox.
So every time I hear that one, I start getting teary. And also when Ariella was doing her visualization, seeing my dad, and I'm sure many of you have the same experience, right, where your dad was your go-to. And it's never easy to lose that person in your life. But what I've come to realize over these past 15 years is that it just changes forms, right? It's no longer physical, but your dad, any of your loved ones who you need are there. You just have to understand that it's no longer with your eyes that you see them or with literal words necessarily that they speak to you, but you start opening your eyes and you start seeing that, you're still in the sandbox and not much has changed. You're still that little boy or that little girl, and they're still standing over you. And you just have to continue to invite them in and use all the strength that you have. And I think that that's a very powerful reminder of the love that was, is, and will always be your dad's for you.
It's also a remembering of forgiveness, that if you've struggled with your dad, we all struggle in our relationships, and it's about forgiveness, not only that your dad or your father figure or anyone that you've lost who's on the other side has gone through a forgiveness process of their own on the other side, and that they are doing their own work on the other side so that they can be in a better, more loving, even if you had the best relationship here on earth, even more loving relationships, so they can be a guide to you in this form, in a different form. And it's about opening our hearts and forgiveness and remembering that we are loved, that we are not alone in this lifetime, but that it is our job as physical beings here to ask for help, to ask for guidance, whether it is from your father figure or the divine above or everything in between, and to remember that you are loved. And so let's continue with our song, You Are Loved, We Are Loved. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love, by unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love, by unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us, Even when we are hidden from ourselves, we are touched by fingers that soothe us. Even when we are too proud for soothing, we are counseled by voices that guide us. Even when we are too embittered to hear, we are loved, loved, loved by unending love, by unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love, by unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love, by unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love, by unending love.
So we're going to wrap up in a moment, but not before we remember formally our dads who are here spiritually, but not physically. And so we'll say the Kaddish, a very short version, but it's a prayer about life. It's a prayer about remembering that death is only a small fraction of our reality, and life is enduring. Life is what this is about. This is a beautiful poem to help us get ready for the Kaddish, this memorial prayer. It's called To My Father by Georgia Harkness. A giant pine, magnificent and old, stood staunch against the sky and all around, shed beauty, grace, and power. Within its folds, birds safely reared their young. The velvet ground beneath was gentle, and the cooling shade gave cheer to passers-by. Its towering arms, a landmark, stood erect and unafraid, as if to say, fear not from life's alarms. It fell one day. Where it had dauntless stood was loneliness and void. But when men who passed paid tribute and said, to know this life was good, it left its mark on me. Its works stand fast, and so it lives. Such life no bonds can hold. This giant pine, magnificent and old. And so we just remember our dads formally, remembering that even if they're not here, you're still within their protection and within their shade. And so we pay tribute to them and thank them for all of that life and protection and love. Kaddish, it's a very simple chant. You can always just shut your eyes and hum along.
So feel free, if you have lost your father, if you'd like to put that name in the chat, feel free as we sing the Kaddish. Yikra ve'ikadash Shemei Rabba Yehi Shemei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam u'amei Almaya Yikra ve'ikadash Shemei Rabba Yehi Shemei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam u'amei Almaya. May the one within and above bless us with your love. May the source of infinite light guide us in our life. May the one within and above bless us with your love. May the source of infinite light guide us in our life. Shalom, 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 shalom.
She skipped to that.
And so we continue with a poem, a reading that's often read during funerals, during our loss, called We Remember Them. And we're going to change it a little to We Remember Him. And though my father is alive and well, thank goodness, we can remember all of our fathers, alive or lost. And remembering, as I read this, remembering the goodness, even though relationships are hard. So I just want to honor my father today on Father's Day, and remember, as we go off into the mountains in a little bit, to remember that my father gave me a love of nature and a love of music. And those two in combination just make my heart sing. So I just want to wish my father a happy Father's Day today. We remember him. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember him. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember him. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. In the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember him. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. When we are weary and need of strength, we remember him. When we are lost and sick of heart, we remember him. When we have joys and special celebrations we yearn to share, we remember him. So as long as we live, he too shall live, for he is part of us as we remember him.
So before we conclude, we're going to conclude in a moment. Thank you for sharing the names of your fathers, Bob Hirsch and Bernie Giller, for the Hirsch-Giller family, and Bob Sipes and Gary Ecker for Susan and Terry Ecker. And all of our fathers, again, who continue to walk by our sides. I will end with this, and then we'll end with a song called Love Is All There Is. But I've said it 1,000 times. I'll probably say it 1,000 more, because it's the most profound thing I can think of when it comes to loss. And it's that a person dies two deaths, once when their body dies and once when their story dies. And there's nothing we can do about bodily death. It's part of the deal, right? To be mortal means none of us getting out of this alive. But we have the ability to defy death. We can and we must become guardians of our loved one's legacy. We are a guardian of their fire, of their flame, of their life, of their light, of their legacy. And there's so much we can do to defy death in that way. And that's what you're doing. That's why you took time out for this. Some people said after the Mother's Day, not some people, a couple people said, it seems a little depressing to do that on Mother's Day or Father's Day. And I would argue the opposite. To me, it seems depressing not to acknowledge my dad, not to say, I'm still here and I'm a guardian of your legacy. And no amount of time is going to diminish that. That's my role. I have a role to be a protector and provider for my family and my children so that they feel what I felt from my dad, and to continue to carry on that for my father. So I would argue that this is not dark and depressing or anything of that nature. It's the opposite. And now you take what we've experienced over the past 45 minutes. Thank you for experiencing it with us. Take it out into the world and shine it so that the world can be a little lighter and brighter, because your dad walked here and because you are a guardian of his legacy.
And so we'll end with Love Is All There Is. Yai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Love, love is all there is. Love is all there is. Love is all there is. Love, love is all there is. Love is all there is. Love is all there is. Yai, dai, 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 yai, dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai.
So we have a lot going on at Soul Center. We're not going to share with you everything. You can go to mysoulcentered.org. I will say that we both work with clients in life, loss, and legacy, any of those aspects. And I imagine if you're on this experience, you're dealing with some part of that, probably loss and legacy. And so we would be honored to hear from you and see how we can work together to help you transform your loss into a finding, a discovery, and also your darkness into a source of life and light, because that's what this is all about.
And also it's a connection, and what I really do too is the two of us together is connecting to your loved ones that have lost, connecting with closing your eyes and tuning into yourself, and opening part of leaving a legacy is to open to forgiveness and open to a more heart-centered form of living. And so that's what we also really connect you to, is this deeper connection with your spirit and with those that have lost, you've lost.
And so with that, we will be back on the air later this week with our soul conversation, which we started last week. We'll be talking more about soul issues together, exploring them. And then on every Saturday morning, as many of you know, we have the Soul Xperience, which is just framing that soul conversation into an experience. And so we appreciate you following us. We'd love to hear from you. Jump over to mysoulcenter.org, sign up for our newsletter, which we send out every other week. And until then,
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Namaste.
Namaste.
Peace.